Chapter 5, Lesson 2. If you notice up here on the corner there, it says 5-4 from the book. We did 5-1, which is from the book. Then in the book there's a 5-2 and a 5-3, but we don't actually have to do those two lessons. They're just not stuff that we have to cover in the Michigan standards. Your book is just a generic book. It's not necessarily written for Michigan, so this is just something we don't have to cover, and that's why you see it says 5-4. But in today's lesson, we're covering the triangle mid-segment theorem. Now again, you're not going to use this in a proof, so you don't necessarily have to really worry about the title or anything, or the theorem itself. You just have to kind of know how to apply it. So mid-segment of a triangle. Basically, the mid-segment of a triangle is a segment that joins the midpoint. So if you create the midpoints here, it's a segment that joins the midpoints of two sides. So if you were to connect these, that would be like the mid-segment. Now, question is can you have more than one mid-segment? And the answer is yes. If you make this other midpoint and you were to connect these, that would also be mid-segment. So notice this can have 3 mid-segments in one triangle. Now many times you only see 1, but there could be 3. Now there's a theorem listed down here below, but if you notice the box is empty, so there's a relationship that we need to fill in. So what I want you to do is in this class example, I want you to find the slope of MN and XY. Then I want you to also calculate the distance of MN and XY, and we're going to see if you notice anything. So I'd like you to pause it here and just go ahead and try those. All right, hopefully you've paused it. I'm just going to kind of do one example of each and then I'll tell you what the answer is, but if you need more help, just feel free to ask. If you're doing the slope, remember that's the difference of the x's over the difference of the y's. So that would come out to be -2/3. If you use the coordinates of xy, you'll actually see that it comes out to be -2/3. So what I want you to answer the question is, what do you notice about the slopes? And you should be noticing that the slopes are the same. Now, if you're to calculate the distance, if you don't remember the distance formula, I can write it down here. It's the big one here, the square root of x2 minus x1 plus the difference of the y's squared. So if you look at MN, we're going to take the square root of 5 minus 2 quantity squared plus the difference of the y's, which would be 2 minus 4 quantity squared. So that's 3 squared, which is 9, and -2 squared, which is 4. So that's the square root of 13, which if you type that into your calculator comes out to be about 3.61. Now if you work out the distance of x, y, so if you haven't done that or if you didn't remember, go ahead and pause it here and go ahead and calculate it. But if you did, or after you've paused it, it should come out to be the square root of 52, which comes out to be about 7.21. Now if you notice, those two numbers are obviously not the same, but there is a relationship between them. And so if you look at it, the distances are about half. Do you notice 3.61 is about half of this with some rounding? So the theorem down here is basically supposed to say to you that a mid-segment in a triangle is parallel and half as long as the third side. So that's the relationship that gets created. Now if you want to look at like a little picture, your book uses like a little triangle picture here, and they draw this in and they have it marked as parallel. And basically the concept is this. Let's say this is x, this would be half x. Another way that they think of it, if you can kind of squeeze another picture in here, is if this is x, then this would be double. Either way you want to look at it, you just need to kind of understand the relationship. So if this is 10, that's 5. Or if this is 5, that's 10. So it's kind of like half for small, double for big. Now if you look at the next page of your notes, you'll basically just see there's a whole bunch of examples here. So let's just go through the examples. It says find GK. Well, if you notice, it's a mid-segment, so we just take half of the bigger one, and that would be 12. Notice on number 2, they give you the mid-segment, so you have to double it to find the bigger one. So you'd have to double 32, and you would get 64. So it just depends on, do they give you the third side, or do they give you the mid-segment? Now when you get to one like number 3, since this is what we call algebraic, you again have to apply that concept, or you just have to come up with an equation. So you have 2 choices. So I'll kind of make a line here. You can either double the middle, so that would be 10x is equal to 70, or you can take half of 70. So you would take half of 70, which would be what, 35? But notice if you divide off, on either side, you're going to get the same answer. You still get x to be 7. So it doesn't matter which way, if you double the middle or if you take half of the big. Either way, it'll come out the same. So if you look at number 4, on number 4, I choose to double the middle, because if I take half of this, I'm going to end up with a decimal. So if I double the middle, I'll get 2n plus 28, and that's going to equal 3n plus 12. If I subtract the 2n, I'll get n, and if I subtract the 12, I get 16, and then that would be my answer. On number 5, notice you have 2 mid-segments here. You have one kind of on the left and one kind of on the right. So you just have to make sure you take it slow. The first one says find JL, which is right here. Notice it has 2 parallel signs, 2 parallel. So I just have to take half of 36. Or no, sorry, I have to double 36 because this is the mid-segment. So if I double 36, I get what, 52. Now PM, if you notice, has 1 parallel mark, and so it goes with this side. So this is 97, so then I would have to cut it in half. So this one I would get 48.5. Now we haven't really dealt much with angles here, but this actually is from chapter 3, so it's kind of a review from 3. It asks you to find MLK, which is this angle right in here. Okay? Well, if you notice, the only other angle given to you is this 102. And because these lines are parallel, these are corresponding. So that makes this 102 as well. So it's just a matter of using your properties of triangle mid-segment and then going back to some of your angle stuff from chapter 3. So why don't you go ahead and pause it here and try 6 and 7. 7's a little longer, but give it a try. All right, hopefully you have paused it. The correct answer for this one is 23 and 88. The correct answers for down below here are 4.125, 11, 57 degrees, and 123 degrees. If you got that right, then you're all done. Go ahead and start your homework. And if you didn't, I'm going to go through a quick explanation. If you need more explanation, feel free just to ask. On XV, this one, if you notice, has 1 parallel mark, so it's going to be half of the 46. That's how you get 23. Then XVY is going to be right in here. And if you kind of notice these 2 angles, on the last example they were equal, but what you basically have here is you have this. You have the 92 here, and then they're asking you for this one. Those are PSSIA, so those are supplements. So you're going to have to take 180 and subtract 92 to get your answer. Now on 7, this has got multiple mid-segments going on. So if you notice, FJ is very small. So what you're going to have to do is kind of work your way out. So if you kind of go out and then out, you're going to be based off the 33. What you want to do is take the 33, cut it in half, and that'll give you 16.5. Then you're going to need just this piece, so that's going to be 8.25. Then you need half of that for FJ, which is the 4.125. So it's sort of like mid-segment, midpoint, and then mid-segment again. So you have multiple steps there. EH, if you notice, that's the horizontal one, and you're going to be based off this one. Actually, no, you're based off this. Well, if this is 22, and if they're all mid-segments, which it tells you up here in the directions, if this is 22, then this is a midpoint. So this is 22, which means the whole thing is 44, but we need this. Half of 22 is 11. Now if you look at your angles, this one right here is down here in the corner. So if you notice again, those are corresponding. So this is sort of like PCA. Now D is kind of a tricky one. Let me draw it out here just a second. This is the 57. This is the one we just did, and we found this to be 57 because they're corresponding. But the one they're asking you for is up here. But again, corresponding. Then these are corresponding. Then these are supplements. You'd have to do 180 minus the 57 to get your answer. I know I kind of went through those quickly, but if you have other questions, please feel free to ask.